Well, ancient things are pretty goodly mysterious. When you look at them, the very first thought is usually, what is this? But understanding its meaning or purpose is never that simple. You can't just guess and hope it makes sense. It takes time and serious digging, and even then, half the answers feel like shots in the dark. That's the thing about mysterious artifacts, they don't explain themselves. And in this video, we're talking about 15 of those kinds of finds, the ones that even make Joe Rogan scratching his bald head. And trust us, they're all totally weird. Let's start off with number 15, the Mehen game. Long before Xbox or PlayStation games hijacked our free time, ancient Egyptians had Mehen, a board game named after a snake god. Played over 5,000 years ago, its board was shaped like a coiled serpent, and the pieces were often modeled after lions. Let's say it was a whole vibe, strategy, symbols, and maybe some spiritual meaning layered in, but then it just vanished. Around 700 years later, Mehen slipped out of favor, and the rules were gone with it. What we're left with are boards buried in tombs, and the occasional artwork that proves the game wasn't just real, it mattered. Some believe it inspired later games like Snakes and Ladders, but that's a stretch. The truth is, no one alive today knows how it was played. We don't know who won or how, just that it existed, and at some point everyone forgot the moves. And it also proves that we are not only the smartest version of humans, we're just a Type 0 civilization. Number 14. The Abater tool. There's simple, and then there's ancient human simple. The Abadera isn't flashy or fancy, it's just a rock used to grind or shape stuff. But when archaeologists pulled one out of Israel's Tabun cave back in January 2021, it flipped the timelines a bit. This chunk wasn't just old, it was around 350,000 years old and broken into 3 parts. But even shattered, it told a story. The edges were clearly used, the pieces once forming a handheld tool that saw serious action. What's wild is that it pushes the timeline of tool use way back, before many thought we were even clever enough for this kind of work. Found in the lower Paleolithic layer alongside hand axes and animal bones, it's clear someone wasn't just surviving in that cave, they were working, shaping, and staying put. Whoever they weren't just primal, they had a purpose. And that blurry point where survival turns into skill. This Abadera sits right on it. Number 13. Boxwood miniatures. 500 years ago, a series of miniature carvings swept through Europe's elite circles. Crafted from boxwood, they were intricate, spiritual, and pretty small. They showed scenes of heaven, hell, and daily life, each one more complex than the last. Henry VIII reportedly carried one on his person, and they quickly became prized as both religious objects and status signs. Then, without warning, they vanished. There were no workshop records, no apprentices, and no written techniques. In 2016, researchers at the Metropolitan Museum of Art studied 30 surviving pieces and discovered that each was made by slicing boxwood into hair-thin discs, carving them separately, then reassembling them so seamlessly that even modern tools can't replicate the precision. All of them appear to come from one artisan's hand. Whoever that was, their death ended the craft completely. These miniatures remain unmatched. Tiny universes sealed in wood, never duplicated, never fully understood, and still humbling every sculptor who dares to try. Number 12. The Singing Colossus. These are pretty famous. The colossi of Memnon have been standing in Luxor, Egypt, for over 3,000 years. 2 big statues that once guarded the now-ruined mortuary temple of Amenhotep III. One of them, though, wasn't always silent. After an earthquake in 21 BCE, visitors began to report something strange. The statue would sing at dawn. Not music exactly, but a whistling or humming sound, almost like the stone itself was waking up. Ancient writers like Pliny the Elder swore they heard it, and the Romans leaned into the legend, even making it a tourist stop. Theories ranged from spiritual to scientific. Maybe it was dew evaporating from cracks in the rock, but no one could explain it for sure. Then, in the 3rd century, another restoration effort seemed to silence it completely. Whatever made it sing, it's long gone now. But for a couple of centuries, that one statue refused to just stand there quietly. It had a voice, and it used it. Number 11. Fingers of Hercules. A man's temple of Hercules sits quiet now, worn down by time. But 3 massive fingers still lie there like a puzzle with missing pieces. That's all we've got. Just the fingers. There is no palm, no arm, and no shoulder. Well, that's creepy. But there are some theories that explain the mystery behind it. Some say it was never a full statue to begin with. Others believe it once stood 40 feet tall, towering like a marble god until an earthquake brought it down. The temple itself was started by Roman hands in the 2nd century, likely never finished. Even so, its scale dwarfs most Roman temples, like they were trying to outdo their own empire. Those leftover digits, carved smooth and large, hint at something massive, possibly a statue of Hercules that was meant to be a statement, but never got its chance. And now? Well, it's just the fingers. Sitting up there on a man's highest hill, silently flexing their mystery at anyone passing by. Number 10. Ancient hunting kit in a Texas cave. This month, inside a West Texas cave between Marfa and Alpine, archaeologists discovered a hunting kit that's 6,500 to 7,000 years old and shockingly well preserved. This wasn't just a pile of random tools, it was a complete setup. A curved boomerang-style throwing stick, a leather pouch, a sandal, an antelope hide, and pieces of a projectile weapon system. They even found human feces and a long-dead fire pit. This is one of the oldest and most complete hunting kits ever found in North America. The whole thing sounds like someone packed for a serious trip and never made it back. What's wild is how intact it all is. The hide's still soft. The stick looks like you could toss it. This isn't just archaeology, it's a time capsule of survival. It shows how early humans weren't just surviving, they were strategizing, crafting, and traveling with intention. It's not treasure, but it's one of the most personal artifacts you could ever find. Number 9. Samurai Coin Jar. Now this is some real Japanese find. Near Tokyo in 2018, workers found something straight out of a samurai's secret stash. A jar packed with over 200,000 bronze coins, 6 feet underground. That's not pocket change. Historians believe it was buried during the 15th century by a samurai trying to keep his life savings safe during a time of brutal civil unrest. The problem is, he never came back for it. The coins came from both the Ming and Tang dynasties, likely payments from powerful shoguns to their trusted warriors. They were once strung together in bundles. 1,000 coins equaled about 1 ounce of silver, and now they sit as a frozen moment of someone's escape plan gone unfinished. Being a samurai wasn't just about honor and swords, it meant living one foot on the battlefield and the other in paranoia. And this jar, it's the silent echo of someone who was ready for the worst, but didn't get the ending they planned. Number 8. The wooden boat toy. In the middle of nowhere, Norway, archaeologists dug up an old well in 2016 and found a small wooden boat buried at the bottom. Not a real one, but a tiny hand-carved model. Dated to the year 1153, the boat was likely a child's toy, complete with a hole in the middle where a mast once stood. Back then, boats were everything. Transportation, power, pride, so a kid having a boat toy was basically peak status. Someone clearly put real effort into crafting it. Smooth lines, solid shape, no quick job. But how it ended up tossed into an old well is still a mystery. Maybe the toy broke, maybe the kid outgrew it, or maybe it was lost in some forgotten village story. Either way, it got sealed away in time, untouched for nearly 900 years. Now it's not just a toy, it's a memory carved in wood, frozen right at the intersection of childhood and history. Number 7. Mummies of the Grand Canyon. Back in 1909, an explorer named G.E. Kincaid claimed he found something wild inside the Grand Canyon, a cavern filled with Egyptian-style artifacts. We're talking hieroglyphs, statues, armor, clay figures, and even mummies. Yeah, mummies. The story says the entrance was marked with strange stains on the rock, and inside were carved rooms and narrow tunnels, supposedly holding ancient remains that looked straight out of the Nile. Kincaid was working with the Smithsonian, and the tale goes that all the artifacts were collected and taken away, then nothing. No photos, no press, just gone. The cavern, allegedly sealed shut. Conspiracy theories latched on fast. Did Egyptians really cross oceans thousands of years ago? Was it a hoax? Or did the Smithsonian just quietly tuck it all away? To this day, nobody's ever confirmed it. But ask the right people, and they'll tell you, the Grand Canyon's hiding more than rocks and rivers. Number 6. Kensington Roanstone. In 1898, a Minnesota farmer named Olaf Oman unearthed a 200-pound sandstone slab while clearing trees on his land. Carved into it were runes, symbols tied to Norse explorers. The inscription claimed that a party of Vikings reached the area in 1362, sparking instant controversy. Dubbed the Kensington Runestone, it became the centerpiece of a debate that still hasn't cooled. Skeptics point to linguistic inconsistencies, claiming it's a 19th century forgery crafted by Scandinavian immigrants. But others argue that details in the carving, like grammar and regional dialect, show knowledge that would have been obscure to hoaxers of the time. Over the decades, the stone has become more than an artifact. It's a source of identity for the people of Alexandria, who built a 25-foot replica to honor it. Whether it's authentic or not, the runestone has outgrown its original mystery. It now stands at the crossroads of folklore, cultural pride, and the lingering possibility that history might stretch further and deeper than textbooks want to admit. Number 5. The Middleham Jewel. In 1985, a man walking along a bridle path near Middleham Castle found a small object buried in the soil. It turned out to be a stunning gold pendant from the 15th century, later dubbed the Middleham Jewel. Crafted with precision and set with a deep blue sapphire, the pendant was more than decorative. It likely served as both a spiritual talisman and a container for sacred relics. Engravings on the front and back show religious imagery, including the crucifixion and various saints, leading some historians to believe it belonged to Anne Neville, wife of Richard III. Inside, only a few scraps of decayed cloth were found, hinting at relics that once held meaning. It's believed the pendant was worn for protection, perhaps during childbirth. When the finder tried to sell it, the British government stepped in, blocking the export and raising funds for the Yorkshire Museum to keep it in the country. It now rests behind glass, its mystery still intact. Number 4. Bone threading tools. During routine conservation work at a site in Turkey in 2020, archaeologists stumbled across something small but significant: bone tools used for threading, paired with rounded stones likely meant for spinning fiber. Dated to around 8,600 years ago, these aren't just scraps. They're among the oldest textile tools ever found. That part of Turkey has a deep tradition of textile work, and this discovery shows that the roots of that craft go back way further than expected. It's crazy to think that before the pyramids, before most written languages, people were already making thread, weaving, and styling fabrics. They even found other pieces from 3,600 years ago at the same site. But compared to these, those feel almost modern. The area later became famous for its colorful dyes and high-quality garments during the Hellenistic period, but clearly, that whole legacy didn't just pop up, it was handed down, quietly, over thousands of years. Through tools like these, just imagine how people lived in that era now just vanished. Number 3. The Tunnel Under Teotihuacan. In 2003, deep beneath the ancient Mexican city of Teotihuacan, archaeologists uncovered a sealed tunnel, one that hadn't been touched in nearly 2,000 years. It took over a decade just to clear and explore it properly. But what they found inside was over 50,000 artifacts, from intricate jewelry and obsidian blades to statues and offerings. The tunnel runs beneath the Temple of the Plumed Serpent, one of the most sacred structures in the city. Some believe it was used in ceremonial rituals, a kind of spiritual underworld meant to mimic the journey of gods or royalty into the afterlife. Others think the real secret might still be hidden, maybe even royal tombs behind a sealed stone wall. No one can say for sure why it was buried so intentionally, or what secrets are still sitting just out of reach. But one thing's clear: whoever built it wasn't just stacking stones. They were hiding something, on purpose. And they were really good at it. Number 2. Koros of Apollonius. Well, just look at that. It's not an artifact. It's an artifact. On the Greek island of Naxos lies a 90-ton giant that never stood up. The Koros of Apollonius is a half-finished statue left behind in its quarry like some forgotten Olympian. It was supposed to be huge, 35 feet tall, maybe more. Sculptors started chiseling away around 2,700 years ago, but then they just stopped. Probably realized mid-project that they had no way of moving that beast once it was done. For a while, people thought it was Apollo, but then, a 1930 study pointed out an obvious thing everyone missed: the figure has a beard. Apollo doesn't do beards, so it might have been Dionysus instead. Either way, it's stuck lying flat, ancient limbs frozen mid-rise, like a statue that gave up halfway through its own origin story. Whatever it was meant to be, it's still there, not standing, not forgotten, just waiting. And again, this thing proves that we know nothing about our history. Number 1. Spirit Pond Runestones. In 1971, 3 stone slabs surfaced near Spirit Pond in Maine, each etched with runes and mysterious symbols. One had a map, the other 2 bore Norse-like inscriptions. For some, this was proof that Vikings or even the Knights Templar reached North America centuries before Columbus. The man who found them, Walter Elliot, handed them over to the Bath Maritime Museum, where they were declared authentic by one expert and immediately dismissed as hoaxes by another. Harvard's runic scholar called them nonsense. But decades later, some researchers began revisiting the find with more open minds. One theory even suggests the runes tell the story of Templar knights escaping persecution in Europe, bringing the Holy Grail with them. That theory crosses into fantasy territory fast, but the stones themselves remain undecided territory. Are they proof of forgotten voyages, or elaborate fakes carved to stir attention? Either way, they're still there, still sparking debates, and still frustrating every expert who tries to prove anything with finality. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, share it, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you very soon in the next one.